today?
Great, how are you?
I'm doing amazing. You were talking about the solar energy and how to store, and you were going forward with it.
Yeah, so I was just saying, so part of the problem with, solar and just building, big farms to cover the usage of areas is that there's, you're overproducing so much during the day, but you still have continuous load at night, and you need somewhere to store that energy. So there's just like a lot of different and unique ways people are storing energy other than batteries. Just like the problem, like when you scale batteries that big, there's just not enough of them, and the capacity and expense of them kind of can kill the returns on some of these projects. But for like other means to store energy, I mean, you can take that excess energy that the solar panels are producing during the day and essentially just pump water uphill. So you can pump water uphill in like a reservoir, and then you can release that, and it will power a typical turbine, just like a dam would for power.
Yeah, like a motor or something, a rotator or something. That's sick. What happens in the house? Like when the let's just say there are some houses in Chicago actually who have solar panels, but they have electricity through whole year, even though we only get sunlight like couple months out of the whole year. How do you think that they are able? Like, how much energy do you need from the sun to produce one household energy?
So in Illinois, roughly standard, especially for like a typical household, you'll have like per kilowatt of solar installed.
Okay.
Will produce about 1,200 to 1,300 kilowatt hours. A typical house, is going to consume like an average house in Illinois is probably somewhere around 14,000 kilowatt hours annually. So usually around like somewhere in the ballpark of like a 8, depending on how much they use, if they have like pool, like how much AC they're running, usually between like an 8 kW kilowatt system to, we've installed like residential projects like up to like 50 kW. But most people kind of are in like the 10 kW, 10 kilowatt ballpark for, residential solar systems. And Illinois actually has like a unique policy where it's called full retail net metering. So like when you're overproducing during the day, and you export excess energy to the grid, the utility will actually compensate you for a 1-to-1 credit. So if you're sizing a system to meet 100% of your annual consumption for residents, then you can, all the export that you're overproducing during the summer months, you can bank all those credits for the winter months, which helps with the payback. So you're essentially using the grid as a battery.
Okay. So if this solar panel electricity, it's this much beneficial, why many people are not applying to it? Because solar panel came out a long time ago, right?
Yeah.
And if it's benefiting people this much, like electric car, as you can see, they came out a couple years ago too, but as you see now, everybody is almost every 10 car you'll see one electric car.
Yeah.
But I feel what I've seen in the place I come from, I didn't see much of the transition people going into solar panel. Is that right?
It varies a little bit on where you are. So like in greater Chicagoland area and Illinois as a whole, the state passed some very lucrative solar incentives. So they're really incentivizing people to go solar. You have like utility incentives, state incentives, and also federal incentives.
Okay.
That really help the project, increase the payback period. But the unique thing about solar, like it's, and why I think there's a bit of challenges adopting it. I mean, it keeps becoming cheaper and cheaper. Aside from like recently with like inflation across materials and stuff, but it's year over year, it's continually getting much cheaper. But it's still a pretty big like capital expenditure for a family, or it's the price of another car for if you want to get it on your home, or even for like a commercial building. It's still pretty big capital expenditure, and somebody's got to like front that money. So there's a lot of unique ways to finance like a solar project or any renewable energy project in general, so you can to increase adoption. Typically it works better in states that have more incentives, but I'd say there's kind of a lot of people I think are really they only see like, okay, it's not like under 5-year payback, but the unique thing with solar, I mean, it's fully static, so there's no moving parts, and every major component on a solar system's more or less warranted for 20 years with a useful lifespan of, you know, greater than 20 years. So you're getting your payback, like, even if it's like a 10-year payback. There's like a term in the industry called levelized cost of energy, where you like denominate the like cost per kilowatt hour over like the lifetime of a project. And, you know, solar and like renewables are, you know, much more competitive than fossil fuels, but, you know, it's still, somebody's still got to like front that money, and it's just kind of a slower adoption. So certain incentives, you know, when people see that payback, you know, under 5 years, and you know, financing mechanisms where you can finance at zero money out of pocket, it really speeds up the adoption.
Okay, because that's what I was saying. Compared to renewable energy, fossil fuels are doing much more damage to the earth in longer period. While if you just wouldn't say investment, but buy like a solar panel stuff, that will cover 10 years of your electricity cost, and you don't have to pay anything for next 10 years of your lifetime. Is it right?
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Because the electricity cost per household, I would say, average $100. Imagine 10 years. That's over, I would say, $20,000. And how much does the solar system cost?
Yeah, so let's say like a residential project, let's say it's like a $20,000 system. Like it kind of depends on where you are a little bit, installation cost and equipment. But just for easy math, you can say like $20,000. There's more incentives that apply for businesses too, but here in the state of Illinois, you have a federal incentive, obviously, which is a 26% federal tax credit. So, you know, if a homeowner were to file their taxes, they would, you know, recoup a dollar for dollar, you know, credit for 26% of that cost. You know, so that's a big chunk of the project. And then you also have the state SREC program, which is essentially paying you for those renewable energy commodities that the system generates. Yeah. And they'll pay you, you know, it's so between those two incentives alone, it covers more than well over half the project cost.
Wow.
And with that, you can finance it with, you know, over 20 years, and then have your monthly payments be much less than what you'd be saving on your utility bills.
Yes, you're totally
or
right.
sorry, your loan payments would be much less than you know, than what your savings are. So you're making a pretty good spread, even if you're financing the system. So yeah, like,
it's a win-win situation for everyone.
Where I'm from, like I'm from Michigan, and the incentives and utility policies aren't quite as cooperative with solar. So
yeah, because you guys don't get a lot of sun and stuff.
Yeah,
right?
there's a resource as part of it, but then also just utility policies and what they're willing to credit you for exports, and you know, like the state incentives for the project are much more lucrative here in Illinois.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, since you're from Michigan, what made you go in the solar panel industry?
I was just passionate about renewable energy in general.
Okay.
I studied mechanical engineering. I've worked in aerospace, robotics, but I was kind of more drawn towards, you know, renewable energy, sustainability, and that kind of stuff. So, you know, I wanted to get into renewables, and solar made a lot of sense, and then the solar market here in Illinois made even more sense. So, that's kind of how I ended up in the industry.
What do you think about the other side, like down south? Would you think that do they have more solar system opportunities compared to one on the north side of the United States?
Yeah, they definitely have a better resource, but I would say the Northeast has a lot better policy.
Northeast, which is Florida side, or
the Northeast
Arizona side
states. Sorry, the Northeast states like Massachusetts, New Jersey. Those states have much better policy to incentivize it. However, the South obviously has a better resource. So
how do these companies make money if they are giving this many incentives and stuff? How do these startup makes money? Wait, did we just miss it?
I think I saw that. I should have told you. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, we did. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, so it's It works out because essentially there's like state, like if you look at your utility bill here in Illinois, you'll see like there's certain line items on your utility bill that are that go into paying for these programs, because essentially it's the utility that receives a penalty if they don't, purchase renewable energy credits that a solar system generates. And then when it generates those renewable energy credits, they have a value tied to them. So it's really the utilities more or less levying the cost on the consumer at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
There's also like state funding, so it's not really like a business. A business makes that expense. I mean, they're gonna get a payback period for that investment.
Okay, so it's more like changing the world for better kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right? What are the things you do, Cal, if you don't mind me asking, besides work, of course?
Yeah.
You know plenty of it.
Like activities or something?
Yeah.
So I'm actually really into kiteboarding. So kiteboarding's kind of like...
Kiteboarding?
Kiteboarding, yeah, I don't know if you're familiar with it.
I'm not actually, if you don't mind elaborating more.
It's very similar to wakeboarding, kind of, except you have a big kite pulling you.
Okay.
It's not super common around here. There's one beach you can kite out at the city, and that's Montrose Beach.
You go in the water for that?
Yep, you go in the water.
I've seen TikToks. I've seen TikTok of that. I don't know if you saw that, but there was one guy who was doing that in either some of the ocean or something.
Yeah.
And he flew over the island. Like, do you guys fly too, right?
Yeah, you can jump really high.
Sick.
So if you get a really windy day, you can really jump. And I got close to like 50 feet like multiple times. And
how does that feel from there? Like, do you guys have a parachute on or
no?
nothing?
So it's just like you just have that kite. So I mean, you're starting on the water. I mean, you kind of fly, but you more or less you're just like riding on the water, and then you just essentially just send your kite like to the top of the wind window really fast and aggressively, and then it'll kind of launch you, but then you come back down. Your kite's effectively the parachute in that case. So
but no, for like I've seen there was crazy videos that I've seen, which was if there was one guy flying in the tornado or something, and he flew away from the water.
Oh really? Yeah.
Could be that could be the made up video.
Yeah,
something like
I mean,
that.
tornado. Yeah, if you're flying around a tornado, there's some gusty conditions for sure.
Shit.
But it's yeah. I mean, normally like the wind's pretty consistent. Like if you kite in like really stormy conditions, I've done it. But it just gets gusty. It ends up being a lot more work, and yeah.
So how did you learn that sport? Because I'm sure, does anybody even teach that sport?
So I actually used to be an instructor.
Whoa, man! Shit. Okay, so how did you become an instructor? I mean, yeah, you had your skills. Did you taught yourself?
I did, which I don't recommend anybody do. But I was just trying to get into kiting the most cost-effective way, and yeah, it ended up being just going out there with some gear. I did have a family friend that did help out a little bit.
Whoa, that must be sick. Because imagine you flying the kite first day, and then you go in the water, you do your thing, and next thing you know, you fly up top. How do you even know that you have to get down? Like, how do you get down if you don't know?
Yeah, so
anything.
It's great. Like, if you're jumping that high, you know how to get back down.
Okay.
I guess. You don't just like start like. There's no scenario where you just get launched. Like
all the way that high.
You're intentionally launching yourself, and to get heights like that, you really have to work your way up to it. So you're jumping like 5 feet, you're jumping 10 feet, 15 feet, 25 feet, 30 feet, and as you improve and like the windier the conditions, you're learning, and obviously you're not learning in like 35 knot conditions. So
that's the one, if I'm not again getting it right, because there are two kinds of kite sports that I know. The one with the kite, which is just like a parachute,
yeah.
And you have the bar in your hand, which is connected to the parachute, and there is a board, which surfboard kind of thing,
yeah,
which is at your feet. Is that one you were talking about, right?
Yeah. So it's like I ride a board that's very similar to like a wakeboard. I also have like a surf style board, and then a hydrofoil. Those. So I kind of have the whole spread there. But yeah, generally I most often, ride the twin tip, so it just looks just like a wakeboard.
Okay.
And you got a bar in your hand, and then you have a kite that's tied onto like 25-meter lines.
Oh shit. So shit, man, I don't even know. What's the worst mistake you made while you were on the kite? You said you don't recommend anybody learning by themselves. Why did you say that?
There's some like learning horror stories where people, you're strapping. It's like almost. It's like it'd be like putting a harness around your waist and tying yourself behind a car and giving the keys to the car or to somebody who's never driven a car before.
Whoa.
So it's just, it can, it can be dangerous. It can like absolutely, take you. The wind's obviously super powerful, and if you don't know how to like size your kite properly and all that stuff, it can be dangerous. So,
have you ever had a near-death experience?
I've never had a near-death experience, and I've taken a couple ambulance rides, but that was mostly because of not like errors, just kind of a weird little accidents and pushing the limits of the sport.
Breaking bones or something like that?
Never broke a bone, split my head open, and bruised a kidney.
Whoa! How did you even bruise a kidney? It's so deep inside. You flapped on the water or something?
I was on a train park, so I was like hitting a rail,
Uh-huh.
and then I fell on a rail, just like snowboarders hit rails. There's like kiteboarding parks and.
Oh, there are kiteboarding parks.
Yeah.
I don't even know how do they make it. I need to do a little bit more research about the sport, But it was very nice talking to you, Kel. Do you want to say anything to the people?
Thank you for the ride.
You're welcome, man. Thank you.
Have a good